Welcome to Dr. Jester Talks, and I'm gonna talk about this. From the war zone, the new KF51 Panther tank packs a big 130mm gun aimed at the aging Leopard 2. Germany's Rheinmetall has unveiled the KF51 Panther that could disrupt Franco-German plans for a new battle tank. Currently, to summarize exactly what they meant there, goddamn, this tank is sexy as fuck. But to summarize everything going on that I said in there, apparently there is a joint venture between the French and the German to actually make a tank that will replace the Leopard 2 and the most recent variant, the 2A8. No, sorry, 2A7, not the 8. Why am I thinking the 8? 2A7 and the MacLeod that the French have, which is a sexy tank. Very sexy. And the Leopard 2 has had quite a bit of an export success. Way more so than the MacLeod. But they joined the venture. Either way, that could disrupt it, based on what it said, as Germany could end up choosing this tank over here. And why is it called Panther and not a Leopard 3 or something like that? Well, because the Leopard is actually designed and made by the KW company, and this one is done by Rheinmetall, which is different. They are mostly known for making cannons, or the guns that you actually see here. They are more notorious about those things, especially because they also designed the cannons for the Abrams tank. That is, well, as you all know, is the American main battle tank, albeit this one is the M1A2 SEP V3, which is the most up-to-date version of the Abrams tank. This one here is heavier, one of the heaviest tanks out there, including the Challenger 2 and the Merkava, the Israeli tank, as well. Those are the three heaviest tanks out there. They have a massive protection and massive armor. It beats the Russian garbage any time of the day. And we saw it how bad they are. Right, remember those excuses that you kept on reading? But they were bunky models, they were export versions. The good stuff, the Russians would never export or give it to them. And we saw it that it's not quite true. They all literally suck balls. Obviously, it's better to have them than nothing at all, but still they all suck. Right. With the tank warfare very much back on the agenda as the war in Ukraine rages on, Germany's Rheinmetall company today unveiled its latest main battle tank, the KF51 Panther, armed with a huge 130mm caliber gun. This private venture design, oh yeah, this was not done by the request of the German government or Bundestag. The private venture design is aimed at long-term successor to the widely used Leopard 2 within the German army, but may well attract interest from other European countries looking at the future of their own armored forces as they reconfigure to face the threat of an increasingly belligerent Russia. Why Panther? Well, because it seems to have a interesting backstory. Well, I'm not going to cover it like that, but it seems the Germans like to name their tanks based on cats or felines. But suffice to say, the tank seems to actually have some contradicting reports. Some here suggest it's 65 tons, some suggest it's 59 tons. Is it short or long tons? Short being, I think it's based on pounds, long is based on kilograms. Or is it the other way around? Anyway, this tank seems to be actually a bit lighter than the Leopard 2. Yeah, that seems to be a bit worrisome in that regard, because it means they could have skimped on the armor regard. Well, according to them, it seems that not may actually be the case. Sure, maybe, because they actually have applied a lot of active protection system to the tank itself. For instance, anti-rocket system that it can actually detect when a rocket is approaching the tank and release countermeasures like firing something to destroy it while still on the air. That's a system that Israel has used quite a bit, quite successfully lately on their Merkava tanks, and it's very good. I don't know how efficient the one is, the one applied on the tank itself, on the Panther, but Panther 2. Right. That could also mean that the turret itself seems to actually be thinner, because they now are employing an auto-loader. I hope they manage to fix, not use the carousel system that the Russian tanks are all very famous for, because anything that explodes and goes boom boom, that turret goes flying right up into the sky, reaching to heights never known to mankind. Or T-72 turrets. Sorry, T-62 turrets up in the sky. Because let's face it, the T-72 is a development of the T-62 with very little changes. Right. And then again, the T-72 also gave birth to the T-80, which is just a new turret and a new propulsion system, which is a turbine that they actually failed. And the T-90, which is also a new turret, but it's the still same chassis of the T-72. Essentially, it's still the same tank. They just like to sell it and then go the cheapest route possible and cheap out on everything else. So it's extra cheap with a new marketing. Great, where was I? Oh right, there's possibility that the turret itself in here is kind of similar to the turret to the Leopard 2, as you can see over here, and they might actually have a more armor in here in this area here, on the little chickies, as I like to call them. It may actually have a proper protection in there, but the cannon itself is 130mm, which is more than the 120mm over here. Smooth bore cannons is quite fascinating because it allows the projectile to actually fly further. It's different from the actual handgun or the gun itself, because on the tanks the projectile itself is different. They actually are. They have fins, they actually have the shape and the corkscrew, so the shape actually travels in circular form and etc. It's quite different. The projectile itself is marked. It does all the... you get it. Another thing, the propulsion system of the tank itself is using the same one that uses the Leopard, but considering since it's lighter, so I expect this tank to go slightly faster or be better at the terrain than the Leopard 2. Another thing that I do worry is the placement of the ammunition. The Leopard 2 actually has a now little tiny squiddy little problem in which they actually do pack the ammunition some over here, which can lead to the turret popping up. But it's definitely not as problematic as what we see on the T-70 series and T-60 series. They also have some ammunition here. Hopefully, based on what we saw, it seems that it may not be the case, but we don't know. It may actually be, the problem may actually be solved. And that's always a good thing, because this is a very beautiful tank, and as you can see, it actually has quite a bit of a stealth type of design it's on the tank itself, which this is good, because it will hide the tank, or at least hopefully hide a bit more than a usual normal tank. In the, for instance, the Apache uses radar, The KF52, I think, also has radar in front of the helicopter, which uses to detect targets up in the front. And the Mi-8 also has radar, I believe. And airplanes. They could actually use those things to detect the tank, but having a more stealth feature, they could actually help the tank not be visible on the radar as easily as if it weren't. So that's always a good thing. But the most interesting bit in here that I found was the 130mm. It has been discussed since the Armata review on the Russian front, which it turns out to be another garbage that we saw, and nowhere near close to the designs that they were planning or selling to the people to actually eat it up. It's not even close. And it's a notorious finicky tank that has failed so far to do most of the things that they were planning to do with it. And it's still not in mainstream production, still not being used by the Russian army, just for show so far. Right, where was I? Alright, the cannon. Because the Russians are trying to sell it with 125mm, which is usually their cannons and things like that. But the 130, that is quite interesting. It could actually offset some of the problems that the German army has, because they don't seem to actually use the depleted uranium tips or munitions that we usually are associated with the Abrams tank, because the Abrams actually uses depleted uranium. You think, but depleted uranium is radioactive? No, it's not radioactive. The entire word says depleted uranium. That means depleted as in it's safe to handle. There is no radiation being emitted out of it. No more than the usual radiation you get from this stuff over here, which is aluminum or cast aluminum thingy. But either way, that's about it on the regards to the depleted uranium. And in fact, the depleted uranium, the tip rods are way more resistant than titanium. Or was it tungsten? I don't care. So, with the speed it reaches, and once it reaches the armor of the tank, instead of shattering like many other projectiles and not penetrate the armor, that thing still stays intact and will then penetrate the armor and going to... Ooh! It penetrates without lube. So it's painful for the tank at the receiving end. And it uses a 3 crew instead of 4, which is the loader. The loader is... It's gone. Is that good? Yeah, probably. Or probably not, but they said that they could actually accommodate the 4th crewman, which could be a platoon commander or somebody else that could be inside the tank. That's interesting. There is still rumors that the Abrams may actually go as an auto-loader system. I wonder how they're going to solve the carousel problem that the Russians have. Then again, the others don't use carousel. For instance, the Leclerc uses kind of like a magazine type that it goes up, up, up. So I don't know how they're going to use it, but the Abrams, the A3 version, may actually go auto-loader and may actually ditch the turbine system that the Abrams have been using up as of late, and switch back to the diesel engine that the M60 used to use, or the Challenger and the Leopard, the Leclerc all seem to use. Leclerc does use the diesel, doesn't it? But the Merkava also uses the diesel engine. Another very interesting bit, I don't know where the engine is located in this one. Is it in the front or is it the back? Let's see. Well, it's at the back. But the new light tank for the Americans, the Griffin, is using the engine on the front. The idea is that, well, it's better protection, seems to have better heat protection and things like that. The design of the Merkava, the engine going up the front, the rumor is it gives extra protection to the crew, even though some of them may say no, it does not, etc. But it seems to, because it's more metal to go through, for the projectile. So the tank may be lost, but the people inside, which is the most important bit, is saved. I know it's against the doctrine of the Russians, save the equipment and let the people die. It seems they don't seem to care about that, because we saw that on World War I and World War II. And right now, they don't seem to actually care about the people. But the reason is for the Israelis to use the engine up in the front is to actually allow them to carry troops in the back of the tank. And it's easier to people leave the tank. At least that's the design. But either way, it was nice to actually see a new tank being developed by the Germans. Been decades since they actually had a new tank development from scratch, because the Leopard 2 is it's from a scratch development tank that is supposed to replace the Leopard 1. So it's interesting to see all of those things. It's quite fascinating, really. Anyway, on that goddamn fucking hell, have a great fucking night.